probably we'll talk about linked service because this is linked to the one of the other component of the data factory. At this point in time, I think it would be better to bring it on. So we didn't create a link service. I think you created only one time to the HTTP service and only one time to the Azure Data Lake Storage account. So I would like to again, okay, some of them, if it's little going beyond your knowledge at this point in time, don't worry, okay, because I know to some extent which all are the components you could able to relate, which all are the components you couldn't able to relate it. So when you create, so if something goes little beyond whatever I'm going to teach you, okay, if you could able to get it 60%, that's I'm more than happy, okay. Some relative thing, but we will be discussing something again later part of the course, okay. Okay, so now we are going to discuss about, there is a one component called integration runtime, okay. It's a little early, but it would be better to discuss about this one at the moment, so that in the later part of the course when we discuss it again, you could be able to clearly link it, okay. So any code we develop here, if it need to be executed, as soon as you click the debug button, okay, as soon as we click the debug button, until you are not running any of the pipelines here, the Microsoft won't charge any money. If you just use the Data Factory Studio and only developing the pipelines, you are not even running one time, then the data Microsoft don't charge any money with you. As soon as you click this debug button, okay, internally Microsoft developed this Azure Data Factory, okay. This is the backend code of the Data Factory. Whatever we are seeing is the front end. They are allowing us to configure the options they have got in this tool, and we are setting the properties. As soon as you click the debug button, the actual Data Factory backend code read the configuration settings that we have provided in this pipeline, and it will dynamically, I think all of you familiar with virtual machines to some extent, probably we can consider it as our laptop, okay. It creates the actual compute and actual memory needed for processing the logic that we have defined in our code, and that component, okay, that component, that the execution component is called integration runtime, okay. It's called, by default when we create the Data Factory, it is creating one integration runtime for us. So this is the new terminology for us. Probably we will include it in the it can be a component of the Data Factory because it is the runtime execution of the integration runtime. Okay, so when we create the Data Factory, by default it's creating this integration runtime. That's why we could able to run our code. It automatically taken care about it. So always in the linked services, the integration runtime will be included. Any link service you open it here, all of them will have that integration runtime, because linked services are basically connecting to the specific source or sync data source. That's where our data processing is going to happen. Either we read the data or we write the data, okay. So that execution is handled by this integration runtime. As long as, okay, there will be one specific question. We will try to define that as much as we could able to remember it, okay. If source or sync data inside cloud environment, okay, it can be any cloud environment as well, because when we talking about inside cloud environment, internally it is inside the web, okay, and it is open. Actually it is not specifically hidden, okay. As long as it's inside cloud environment or accessible via web URL, okay. In all these cases, the default integration runtime is sufficient, okay. It could able to connect into these sources or syncs. It could able to read or write the data from the source or sync storage layers, okay. Probably source or sync data, it would be all right actually, source and sync data, okay. As soon as the source or sync data is going beyond these environments. For example, it need to read a file from my machine. Okay, if it need to read this file from my machine, data factory have no clue of reading the, first of all, no clue of where my laptop is located and which folder it is located. Okay, it couldn't able to do it via the default integration runtime, that is the auto resolve integration runtime. It can't able to read it from my laptop file or a data stored in my database as well. Okay, I think in this machine I don't have local database, I am working in other machine, should be fine. If you got your local database, it couldn't able to read it. So Microsoft is giving, okay, there are three types of three types of integration runtimes. Okay, this is the Azure integration runtime or auto resolve integration time, default one. The another one is called Azure self-hosted. Okay, this is the different integration runtime. This will allow us to connect into my local machine. I will give you the support details for this one. Simulating this one inside the course is too difficult. You will be end up too many errors, but just understand this one, okay, and go through this one and try to configure it in your local machine. If you got any error, you let me know. Okay, so the default one is Azure, that is the one. The self-hosted is the one. When you click self-hosted, it will give us the, it is give us the key values here, and it's also ask us to install the integration runtime. That is basically it is creating the instance of the Azure Data Factory backend pipeline code. If I download this one, this will download the specific integration runtime software in my local machine. You can choose it different options depending on the different versions. If you install this integration runtime in my local machine, then from my local machine, this data factory can able to read it. We need to provide set of properties. We are going little beyond our understanding of the skills. That's why I'm not demoing that one at the moment. We will demo this one little later. So this self-hosted integration runtime, wherever you need to read it, which is not in this limit of the source or sink data, that specific machine, you need to install this integration runtime so that this data factory can able to understand that based on the components installed in our machine and these keys we will be configuring in our local machine. Again, I will send you the URL for configuring this self-hosted integration runtime. I tried my best to integrate into the course, but it is too difficult because it is not unique to the everyone. The parameters that we are defining it, including these keys, we end up having too much of the trouble. That's why I didn't include it, but it is possible. Okay, if you properly follow through that instruction manual and you configure it, you can able to read the file from your own machine. Okay, so when we are going to create our CV, okay, I think I mentioned about it little earlier about the source flow. Okay, this is the data flow in data analytical project. Probably I bring it here. Is it in data ingestion pipeline? Okay, this is the data flow in data analytical project. When we create your CV, we are going to say your source as HTTP web, depending on whichever the project you are currently using at the moment. Based on that one, we will design. It can be a SQL database. Okay, that is the most common thing. Otherwise, if you worked in any of the ERP or CRM solutions, this is what we are going to say source. Okay, their first question is these source systems are hosted in the cloud environment or it is hosted in your own client environment. Okay, if it's a if it's not a cloud environment, there is a term is there called on-premise environment. Okay, it is installed in the premise where the client is using those systems. It's called the on-premise systems. Okay, this is the one of the terminology I might have included in the terminology section. Probably I have missed that one in the data engineering introduction. Well, I'll include it. Okay, because the Terminologies are the key here, okay? The interviewer is expecting you will be speaking about that specific terminology all the time, okay? They are expecting that one. So if you mentioned that your source system, HTTP web don't fall under that category, okay? As it is a web server, you don't need this additional self-hosted one. Even we haven't proven that one, we could able to read it from HTTP web server. Either your database or any other source system that you are mentioning in your CV is not hosted in cloud environment. If it is hosted in the on-premise environment, in that environment we need to install this self-hosted integration runtime. They are not going to ask you how did you configure self-hosted integration runtime. As long as you will say that we have configured self-hosted integration runtime in my source system which is existing outside the cloud to connect into the specific source. So once you create the self-hosted integration runtime, the linked service that you create to connect to your source system, you need to change your integration runtime from the Azure default one into the new self-hosted integration runtime. Otherwise, it won't be able to connect it. This is mainly comes in the source system because our sync system always going to be a Azure. So all of the Azure services, the data factory could be able to connect using the standard integration runtime. So we need to aware that one. There is one more integration runtime called linked self-hosted, okay? Linked self-hosted. This is little related to the same self-hosted one. Now assuming that self-hosted versus linked self-hosted, okay? If you create self-hosted here, okay, in this Azure data factory, only this Azure data factory inside this subscription can able to use it. If I create that as a linked self-hosted, okay, even in the same Azure subscription, if I create one more data factory, that data factory can also able to use that one. That is the difference between self-hosted and the linked self-hosted. Only one ADF can use it. The linked self-hosted, multiple ADFs in same subscription can be used. Okay, that is the one of the question little related to this one. We bring this one again, okay, because when we learn the new component called data flow, the execution engine is going to be little different. It's Apache Spark engine. Anyhow, as long as you know what is integration runtime and what it is doing it, in each run actually, if you run at the run log, you can able to see that integration runtime in that. Probably we can run one of the pipeline. Hopefully don't give the pipeline one. Sorry, it's already run through. Can you see that the integration runtime is coming because that is the one actually running this pipeline. That is the backend code. We need to know at that level. It's written in Java. There are too many that is the actual development of the Microsoft. We don't need to worry about it. We don't need to go how it's been developed and how it execute the component. It's all too in depth actually. Okay, they use the Kubernetes cluster, and inside the Kubernetes cluster they create the multiple virtual machines. If the data size is kept on increasing, they automatically increase the virtual machines and also the memory inside the virtual machines. That is too internal for us, and nobody is asking us to worry about that one. But we need to know what is the integration runtime. That is the level of the understanding we need to have in the specifically ingestion pipelines, because ingestion pipeline is the one we are reading something outside the Microsoft Azure cloud as well. The source system can exist inside the Azure cloud or exist outside the Azure cloud. If it is exist outside the Azure cloud, you need to use the self-hosted one. You all are very kind actually. You really do not want to torture me, okay? Because while I'm clicking, The self-hosted integration runtime, I only explained about this one. I didn't explain about these two integration runtimes. Okay, this one is the SSIS. Okay, SSIS is SQL Server Integration Service. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to work on that one, but I know what it is. Okay, SQL Server Integration Service. It's called SSIS. Okay, prior to ADF, this is the Microsoft's ETL product. This is not in the cloud. Okay, it is you need to, if you install the SQL Server database, sorry, you can able to install this tool, and it will allow you to ingest and transform and publish the data. And this is the previous tool. So when some of the people are migrating into the cloud, they said that some of their code is existing in SSIS, so they have provided provision to execute the SSIS code inside the Azure as well. So for that they created specifically Azure SSIS integration runtime component.